Good evening. Thank you. Welcome to tonight's program, Threads, A History and Future of Queer Fashion, presented in partnership with the Fashion Institute of Technology. My name is Suhaly, Bautista-Carolina, use she, they, we, us pronouns, and I'm the Chief of Programs at the American LGBTQ+ Museum. Yes, boo. The American LGBTQ+ Museum is a new collaboration dedicated to preserving, researching, and sharing LGBTQ+ culture and history that will open its first physical galleries right here in New York City in 2027. But we're not waiting 2 more years to bring you dynamic, intergenerational, literally magical public programming and traveling exhibitions that are centered on LGBTQ history and culture. We're already here, and so are you, so hooray. I encourage you to follow us on social media, become a founding member, continue to attend our programs, tell a friend about us, and stay engaged as our story continues to unfold. I'm honored to welcome you this evening on behalf of Rosamond S. King, who's a trustee at the American LGBTQ+ Museum, who unfortunately could not be here this evening with us, but asked me to acknowledge our ancestors and transcestors who defied gender norms since the concept existed, and to give a nod to cultures where the norms of gender dress are inherently queer, from Cambodian sarongs and Scottish kilts to West African bubus and more. This is what happens when your phone closes on you. I'd like to express our deepest gratitude to our friends at FIT for not just hosting us this evening, but for helping us bring this program to life from conception to today. To the incredible team at the museum, Lucy, Seth, Hugh, and Ben, and to our brilliant panel of queer fashion superstars, who you'll hear from in just a few moments. Bathrooms are located on the lower level, and if you have any questions about accessibility requests, please see our team at the checkup table on the top floor. It's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Marcus Anthony Brock. Dr. Marcus Anthony Brock captures race, identity, social justice, art, and our evolving humanity through storytelling. Griot descendant from Laurel, Mississippi, he is a keeper of things, a native son, and a proud dreamer from Compton, California. Since fall 2017, Professor Brock has taught at FIT. At present, he's an assistant professor of composition and rhetoric and the writing program coordinator in the English and Comm Studies department, where he develops courses in first-year writing, cultural studies, LGBTQ+ studies, African-American literature, and love as a gift and a thief. In addition, he's a senior scholar in residence at the Chapin School in Manhattan. Dr. Brock holds a BA in American Literature and Culture from UCLA, a master's degree in Communications Management from the University of Southern California, and a PhD in Comparative Lit and Cultural Studies from Stony Brook University, where he held a Dr. W. Burghardt Turner Fellowship throughout his doctoral studies. Coming of age in Compton and Bellflower, California, brought deep challenges and gifts that have lasted a lifetime, but always as an Afrofuturist in a queer body, he is on a quest for liberation, come what may. I welcome to the stage Dr. Brock.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. I can kind of see some of the faces. Just taking in the moment. All these beautiful places and faces. I'm going to keep it short. Like Baldwin said, there may not be much love in the world as one would like to see, but there is some. This is an interesting, precarious, prescient moment that we are gathered here today, and I think that we'll hear from our panelists and our moderator today who will kind of talk about those things. I'm sure they will come up as we think about the sartorial. In my classes here at FIT, I often like to think about our clothing as an amulet, protection, right? I think that is one of the few things, or one of the main things that I think that we as queer people, as allies, as people who live in bodies that may be disenfranchised and dehumanized, have that protect us because they empower us in ways for us to be able to move through the world. So welcome everyone here this evening. I'm so glad to see new faces, old faces, familiar faces, community faces, and hopefully this won't be your last time here at FIT for one of our events. And so now, for coming over one of our events, sorry. It was last November, I went to an event at the Center for Fiction, and it was right after the election. And I wasn't in a good mood, to say the least. And not only was I in a good mood, I was feeling very heavy. And so I went alone and I sat on a couch by myself at this event that the American LGBTQ Museum was hosting. And I sat in the corner. And Jess Chung was one of the highlighted authors that night, who will actually be coming to FIT soon. And I just sat in the corner by myself. I didn't want to talk to anybody, but I just wanted to be in the space. And as I was leaving, one of the board members started chatting me up and found that I worked at FIT. And they were like, oh, wait, we're working on an event around gender and fashion. And that's how this all came together. Because even in a moment of turmoil, I decided to just put myself with my people and to see what happened. So without further ado, I want to welcome all of our beautiful panelists this evening. Anita Dolce Vita, who will be moderating our discussion this evening. Professor Emil Wilbekin, here this evening. Austin Bjorkman, the CEO of Trans Guy Supply. And Angela Dene, queer style expert.
So thank you for having us this evening. I just wanted to give a round of applause again for our panelists. Thank you to the audience for being here. Thank you to the American LGBTQ Museum and FIT for holding this event for us and continuing to provide platforms for archiving our history and celebrating who we are, and also so that we can gather in resistance and non-compliance. So, thank you. So, what we'd like to do is offer the opportunity for the panelists to introduce themselves through their own work visually, so that you can get a better understanding about the work that they do. So, I believe first up, we have Emil.
Yes. Okay. Hi, everybody. How are you doing?
Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. I like that. Okay. So I am an assistant professor here at FIT. I teach journalism, introduction to journalism, PR workshop, and magazine feature writing. My background is in fashion. I was the fashion editor at Vibe magazine. I was also the editor-in-chief at Vibe magazine, where I was able to create kind of iconic hip-hop work. The first cover that I ever styled was Biggie and Faith in the Convertible. Yeah, first out the gate. Yes, that's a yes. Yes. So currently, I'm the founder of Native Son, which is a movement, community, and platform created to inspire and empower Black, gay, and queer men. So the images that I chose to share are kind of a range of that. One of the things with Native Son is that we talk about our voice and visibility, and one thing is we all dress fab. And I literally could have done an hour slideshow, but these are just some of the images. You saw Coleman Domingo, there's Sylvester. The thing about Black, gay, and queer men is that we are the original influencers, right? We have created most of the fashion, most of the styles, and for many years, these men created this work and no one knew who they were. Right? So Native Son is about bringing them to life like a Kevin Aviance and really showing the diversity of our community and what it means to be a Black, gay, queer, gender non-conforming man in our bodies. And a lot of it is just us showing up and showing out, right? You think about a lot of celebrities. I could name about 100 stylists, from Law Roach to Jason Bolden to Jaleel Wheeler. All of these men style your favorite celebrities, right? And on the red carpets. And a lot of the looks that they create actually end up filtering out and covering magazines and being what you all are wearing now, you know, in the words of Miranda Priestley. So I also have images here of different Black designers like Stephen Burrows, Patrick Kelly, Willie Smith, because I think it's important for us to uplift these Black gay fashion designers who, again, people didn't know. Willie Smith had a $25 million business, right, in the 70s. So a lot of it is like hidden figure work. There's, you know, this moment with Billy Porter at the Oscars was so amazing because the one thing we say about Native Sons is that we're butch queens, right? So there's a lot of masc and femme. There's George M. Johnson from Harper's Bazaar. They have one of the #1 books that are banned in the country. And then there's Langston Hughes from the Harlem Renaissance. So it just shows you that's Laquan Smith, who is an amazing fashion designer who Tom Ford said is next. That's Eric Hart Jr., who is an amazing up-and-coming photographer. These are some images that I produced for Paper Magazine years ago. And then there's Law with not the bust down, with the blonde hair. And so these images, these black and white images, are from a shoot I did for Paper Magazine called Black is the New Black. And it was really great to just show different, you know, Black queer men in all the different ways that we show up, if it's pants, it's a skirt. And then I'd be remiss not to mention ballroom, right? So Willie Ninja. And ballroom is where so much fashion, conversation, and innovation happens. So that is my story.
Thank you for sharing. And next up, we have Austin Bjorkman.
Hi, I'm Austin Bjorkman, and I'm currently the owner and designer of Trans Guy Supply. Thank you. It's an online marketplace for trans, masculine, and non-binary folks, and I got my start in menswear right here at FIT, and I launched my first line, high-end line, called Sir New York in 2010, and I'm the first known out trans designer to show for New York Fashion Week. So I'm going to show you a couple of representations of my work. The first video will be of my runway collection 2012 at the Out Hotel. Instead of a presentation or a catwalk, I created an interactive experience at the Out Hotel. And this should just show you they're all original prints and quite a hot cast, if you ask me. I'll just say, and at the time, this was really very forward. Everything was very like buttoned up, bow-tied, kind of conservative in fashion at the moment. So this was the first mesh and neoprene and kind of sporty high-end fashion that really transformed a lot of work. After that, everybody from Alexander Wang to Adidas to high and low, everybody kind of like followed this trend. Even the colorways, you can see the colors today are still these same kind of colors are influenced and being used, which really wasn't happening at the time. Thank you. The next one is a video that it shows more about the representation and the feeling and the diverse cast of beautiful transmasculine folks that I produced with Mala Forever. And I think this just kind of shows how important it is that we're making things that are utilitarian but also sexy and beautiful, and that show that trans folks are not just odd or different, like we're gorgeous and we belong in fashion.
There's a freedom in being trans. It's like finally coming home. There's a certain tenderness in how I try to embody moving through the world, the importance of softness.
What do you love about yourself?
I love that I have learned how to heal.
Being authentic to me means freedom.
Being a rebel and a visionary.
I am thinking about the little me who has never seen anything like that. You know what I'm saying? And all the other kids who have come up to me like, wow, you made me feel like I can do this.
When folks have an opportunity to see themselves in other people, then it gives us permission to be ourselves, to explore who we are. We always have been here and we always will be here.
There is no deadline on when you're gonna find yourself.
You get to define what that is.
That's all.
Thank you so much, Austin. And Angela, you're up next.
I don't have the clicker up here. Okay, so I'm Angela Dene. I'm a queer personal stylist, and I help my clients embody their inner knowing and their inner essence, and bringing that out into the embodiment using the tool of clothing. So this is a little different. You don't really hear much about queer stylists because fashion is often only focused on heteronormative when it comes into creating the style archives or archetypes of who and how we express ourselves. So I really wanted to explore more into being yourself. But let me tell you a little bit about the style journey for me. I went to NC State College of Textiles. I actually applied to go to FIT with very elementary illustrations. It was a learning experience for me, but I say this because it didn't stop me from finding my way into the industry. I get asked often how I got into the fashion industry, and it's by finding my own journey, finding my own way. So I really encourage all of you who are interested in exploring and getting into this industry. There's not one way to do it. After I realized I was not able to hustle my way into moving to North Carolina, or moving to New York from North Carolina, I just took the leap and I moved here without a job or an apartment. So needless to say, I hustled my way through this industry and found so many gems in doing internships. My first internship was with Kanye West stylist Renalou Pandora. I also worked with Lori Goldstein and many other high-end editorial stylists, which landed me into working in retail management and also e-commerce styling at Gilt. And I really was able to get my hands into understanding what was missing in the industry. But one of the common things that I found being in the industry was that queer people create it. I found my safe space in the fashion industry, in styling, because 10 times out of 10, there was at least one queer person in the space, and it made me feel safe. It made me feel seen, and it made me question a lot of things about how we identify ourselves in style. How many of you guys have taken a style quiz before? Remember them when they were back in magazines back in the day? How many of you actually found your style through a style quiz? Right. Everyone is multidimensional, but especially queer people, we are multidimensional because we have to first self-identify ourselves as being an outlier within our society. When you come to your inner knowing and inner awareness of being queer, you first have to come out to yourself. And that's where you need to start when you're trying to identify what your authentic style actually is, by centering yourself, by centering your heart, and by centering the essence that you bring into expression into the world. So that is why I like to really work with energy work. So energy work for me is kind of spiritual. It's scary, but it's also freeing. It allows yourself to be able to be like, hey, I'm cringe, but I'm free, right? Hey, I don't look like you, I don't look like the template outfits that everyone's wearing on trend, but I feel good in my body, I feel good in my outfit, I feel seen, I feel like I'm me. That is where that energy work comes from, when you center yourself as the point of view versus trying to find yourself in other style archetypes and being a fashionista, being whoever you think that you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to show up as a queer person. Even as we navigate this world and queerness is coming into more awareness, I'm finding that a lot of other people, including straight people, are dressing more like us. So it's actually harder to define and find ourselves within each other in other spaces, because we're like, are they straight? Are they, their outfit's a little androgynous. I don't, should I talk to them? It's confusing in these streets, y'all. So what we want to do is really focus in on energy. Energy says everything. I know as a queer person, we can typically clock each other because we see each other. We look at each other different. We feel each other's energy. We know how to recognize because we know who we are and we attract each other. So that's where the energy work starts. So this is where I came up with my style alchemy. And we start with style concept work, where we are really evaluating some of the limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves so that we can release them. So that we can take the ownership of how we really want to talk to ourselves, speak life into ourselves, instead of saying, oh, I don't look like this, oh, I can't wear this. I'm usually more masculine, but I'm kind of wanting to explore femme outfits, but how do I do that? Everyone just knows me as masculine. Really understanding the self-talk and the script that you're telling yourselves when you are getting dressed is key, and learning how to use the modalities that resonate with you to release yourself from those limiting beliefs is huge. The next step is the mind-body connection. If you can't tell how you feel in your body when you have clothes on, you're not going to be able to find your authentic self and your authentic style. You're always going to be looking outside of yourself, trying to get validation from other people, and that's not where it is. Having that mind-body connection allows you to move and feel the energy move through your body, and allows you to really get into that connection and that inner knowing of, I'm safe. I can feel the sensations of being nervous and still know I'm safe. I can feel the sensation of other people looking at me weird and still feel safe in myself because I know I feel good and I know that this is me. So really embodying that energy and your inner essence through movement, through self-concept work, and then you get dressed. Then you decide, oh yes, this is me. This is me because I've cut out the noise. I really know exactly who I am, and I can find the styles that resonate with me. So I'm gonna leave you with this. Style isn't about what you wear. It's a tool for embodiment. You are not the clothes. Clothes do not have gender. You are one of one. There is literally no one else like you. Find your style within yourself and then show the world, because we need more representation out here, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Angela. So I'm Anita Dolce Vita, and I am a writer, and I'm a producer. I'm the owner of dapperQ, which is one of the world's most widely read queer style magazines, and we also produce some of the largest LGBTQ fashion shows. Probably our most famous one is annually in September at Brooklyn Museum. Yeah. We showcase up to six to eight designers and over about 80 models. Austin has been a part of our shows and is just phenomenal, but the energy is spectacular. It's in Beaux Arts Court, and so we really thank Brooklyn Museum for hosting us there. What I'd like to show you now is a video. This is a video, I believe, of our 3rd annual one there. So the logo is a little bit different because when I first took over dapperQ, and we can get into this discussion later, dapperQ is mainly focused on transcending menswear, which is usually the gold standard of masculinity for particularly people assigned female at birth. And then I expanded it to include a larger range of fashion, including a celebration of queer femme fashion. So yeah, we can roll that video.
We're at the Brooklyn Museum
for dapperQ's 4th annual runway show that happens during Fashion Week.
Anytime someone expresses themselves through clothes and creativity, it's always empowering and powerful.
And everybody being true to themselves, I think, is a unique experience that no other fashion shows offer.
It's very important for our community that we can all be together, we can all have a voice, break through stereotypes.
So when you're making clothing for women that want to be dapper and want to wear, things that they feel comfortable in and being themselves, this is more so the line of where we're at.
dapperQ does is they provide a space for us, for designers like us, for fashion houses like us, and we're so grateful for that.
A runway show like this allows us to see actually how diverse people really are, and it celebrates that diversity.
We're queer, but we represent everybody. And today, I'm gonna slay that runway.
you so much for playing that. Every year that I do the show, I'm like, I'm never going to do it again. And then I see it and I'm like in tears. So thank you for everyone for sharing your background. I think it's very interesting and important to our conversation this evening. Angela, as you had mentioned, clothing does not have any gender, it doesn't have any sexual orientation. But tonight we are talking about history of queer style and the future of queer style. So we have to start with a working definition of that, right? So to all the panelists, I'd like to ask you, what is your definition of queer style?
Everyone's looking at me. For me, it depends on the individual. I tend to think that fashion is queer, just because you can dress for whatever essence and whatever energy that you want to express. So it can be in a very fluid way. It can be expressed in a very defined way. You get to make it up as you go. Again, like clothes are for play and for expression, and queer fashion is also us.
Thank you.
Well, queer fashion has always been more about clothing. It's about self-identity, it's about survival, it's about self-expression, it's about safety. It's linked to our identity. It's more than just a style or a trend. It's a representation of who we are and how we feel. And I think that that's always been the case, and I think it always will continue to be the case, and will always be at the forefront of fashion, because we have to be innovative to represent ourselves the way we want to as queer and trans people. And we're amazing. We will take absolutely nothing and make it absolutely beautiful, and then the rest of the world follows. So I think that will always be the case.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I agree with you both. I think for me, it's about energy, it's about expression. I think there's a creativeness to it, but there's also a rebellion to it oftentimes. And I think what's wonderful about it is it's not one thing, right? It is really about how you wear it, how you carry yourself. You know, I think about like my days at Vibe when hip hop fashion was like at its zenith, right, in the golden era of hip hop. But a lot of it were, you know, how people had to protect themselves, right? Like if you were queer in the hood, right, you couldn't necessarily be super femmed out. And so we think about like a lot of the way the rappers dress was really based off of kind of black queer style, right? But again, it was like, how do you protect yourself from the elements? How do you protect yourself when you're on the train late at night and you want to look fab, but it may not be safe to look fab, right? So then that turns into a different form of armor. So I think a lot of fashion, when I think from a queer perspective, it's about how are we armoring ourselves up for whatever it is. If it's corporate America, if it's walking down the street, if it is going to a rave, whatever it is, we are armored up.
And so I provided you all with a list of questions, but I want this to be more conversational. And what I noticed you also mentioned about how queer style has influenced hip hop. I know there was a clip of Swizz Beatz that was talking about how queer style has opened the ways to new dressing and more risk-taking for hip-hop artists. And I was wondering if you had like a few examples of that from your experience working at Vibe.
Well, I mean, it's so funny. I remember doing a documentary or a series for PBS, and they were like talking about like kind of homophobia and homoeroticism in hip-hop, right? And I was like, what's more gay than like a muscular guy with no shirt, greased up, baggy jeans and Timberland boots and chains? Like, I'm like, yes, and so, right? And so, yeah, so I think what has happened, and Angela spoke to this, it's that Like, I don't know who's gay or straight based on their clothing choices anymore and the way people dress. Like, honestly, if people are too styled out, I'm like, you're 100% straight. Right? I'm just like, you are straight. But I think in hip hop, we saw it open up like we do always. Like, gay, queer, gender nonconforming, trans folks, we set the trends, we set the styles. I mean, look at Kim Kardashian. Right, it is her look is informed by queer people, right? Her beauty. Trans women, black women, like all the things, right? And so I think that it's having that influence. And so I like that Swizz said that, particularly now. Like, I mean, literally there's like 100 black, gay, and queer male presenting stylists who are dressing every single person in Hollywood. Like Jason Bolden literally is styling Nicole Kidman now. And so it's like to see that influence, it makes me really happy, right? Every time I see Rihanna, I'm like, ooh, Jaleel killed that, right? And it's just, it's amazing to be able to see how that transcends and influences everybody else.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to Angela, something that you had mentioned earlier in your presentation about energies. And I remember going to a queer fashion symposium, and it was primarily focused on the history of cis gay men. And they had one woman presenter who was, you know, more masculine presenting, and didn't really touch at all about like femme fashion. And so when I asked, like, could you provide us some more information, examples about how femme fashion falls into the queer style narrative, how it's transgressive, she said that she felt that femmes were just looking to pass. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about femme energy, about authenticity, and how femme style is transgressive.
That's a really good question. That's a deep question. I think, well, I'll take from my personal experience. When I came out, it was after college, and I remember everyone labeling me. And they were like, well, you're femme. Like, your hair is long, you wear dresses, and you know, you're always in feminine presenting clothing. And that really was hard for me to accept because femininity is within all of us. And we also have masculinity, feminine energies, and blending them. And I really wanted to explore more around not putting ourselves in a box after we just got out of the closet. I just got out of the closet, now there's more levels. Like, make it make sense. It was very hard and confusing, and that's definitely something that I like to bring up within my work and working with my clients, is really challenging that idea that being femme presenting has to look a certain way. It doesn't. We really have the opportunity, especially now, to explore what femininity is within ourselves, and it is from pulling from inspiration, pulling from photo shoots, pulling from artists and stylists who add femininity to a traditionally more masculine body, and be like, hey, maybe I can do that. I don't have to totally replicate it, but maybe there's a piece there that I can pull the essence of and add it into my day-to-day wear. So it's more of an internal work expression for me, and working with my clients and really getting that you don't have to pick a lane. And your energy shifts as well too.
Yeah, do you, Austin, have more to add on that, particularly in some of the work that you're doing to kind of challenge binary notions of masculinity within our own communities?
I would just say that I think it's really important that we do include non-binary people and representation, because that is another category that it's feels like people have to be put in a box. If they're non-binary, it means they have to have androgyny or It's just another lane where we're creating a label, which is helpful for people, but also then people want to slap on what that actually means. So I do want to mention that, but also I think time immemorial, fashion has always blended and blurred the gender lines, whether they've had the language or not. Just the jacket you're wearing, a lapel and a jacket in women's wear, that was like a big thing and had a moment when you could bring some masculinity into fashion, into feminine, or I don't even like to say feminine because I think it's just clothing, and society creates the label of what is considered feminine or masculine, and that changes over time, all of the time. But I think just playing with all of the different elements that we put the labels on in clothing, I think is freeing for folks. And I think that once people step outside of like these boxes and these labels and the constrictions of menswear and women's wear, I think that it allows people to express themselves in lots of ways and not have those labels. And I think that's all I really want to add to that.
Thank you. And for Emil, I had a specific question for you, which is, how has queer fashion historically been used as a form of resistance and self-expression? And if so, if you can provide some examples that are beyond the typical Western notions of queer style.
Wait, say that again.
Okay, that's a lot, right? Okay.
It's okay.
So the reason why I asked this is because when I was writing my book with HarperCollins, they wanted me to do a whole section of the history of queer style, and I am not a queer style historian, for one, and for two, I thought that it was like, did they want me to write the history of queer style just from a Western colonialist perspective? Like, how am I supposed to write the entire history of queer style? So, queer fashion is used as a form of self-love, self-affirmation, and resistance. If you could provide some examples of that, and if you had any examples that are more global.
Sure. I mean, so the place that I can speak of with real experience is South Africa, right? I've spent a lot of time there when I was chief content officer at Afropunk. And one of the things that I thought was so great is it's built into their constitution that they are accepting of queer people, right? And that's really liberating. And so there's all these amazing parties and events, and everyone comes as they are, right? And so I think there's something about, you think, okay, so Africa, it's going to be tribal or it's going to be colonialized, right? But to see this mashup, and they have a huge trans community there, they have a legacy of drag queen shows and performances, amazing ballroom experiences, and all of that, though, is very intentional and resistant against many of the tribal African religions. Are very conservative and things like that. A lot of it's informed from colonialism, right? And so it's interesting to see that pushback. I was also thinking about, like, in Europe and other places, when you see protest, right? I think there's this, it's kind of so similar to here, though, in many ways. It's statement t-shirts and leather and how we show up, right? I think especially if you think of like the leather scene and how people really, and that's global, right? That people, I love your harness. It's like fab, right? Over the dress. It's like but that is a form of resistance as well, right? It's like I'm showing you all the things that I am. So I'm hoping I'm answering the question.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that's a great example. Did you have anything to add?
I mean, just, like anything from a sarong to a caftan, like people have been wearing dresses and skirts regardless of what their body is doing from time immemorial. And I think that, it's this colonial Western perspective of men wear pants and women wear skirts, that it's just imposed on us.
So My next question is for Austin, and in today's political climate, trans and non-binary rights are increasingly under attack. How has this impacted your work as a designer and business owner? And what challenges do you see for the community when it comes to access to gender-affirming fashion and products?
Well, we're increasingly seeing, everything from trans access to healthcare to limitations on our identity documents. That it's beyond ideology. These things have like real effects and real consequences for us as human beings. And right now, people are scared. People are fearful of, how they can show up in the world and what clothing they're going to be allowed to wear, what bathrooms we can use. Like the restrictions, I think just on our psyche alone are having a major impact. And as a business owner, I feel a great responsibility to push back on these restrictions and these ideologies. And I feel like it's really important to be able to continue to make gender-affirming products and clothing available to folks who right now are, they're afraid that they might not have a job tomorrow. They're afraid they might not have access to products that allow them to be comfortable, allow us to be comfortable in our bodies. And for me, it's just important to make sure that we continue to make these things accessible, and that, that I understand that our community is suffering financial and legal challenges, and to be able to not only provide gender-affirming products that make you feel good, but that that we're supporting the community at large, and that we're making, in some ways that I do that is that we do a lot of giveaways. We support a lot of organizations with binders and packers and other products, and we use our platform to, advocate for trans equality and trans rights. And I think that's where we're at right now.
Thank you. So I wanted to get into some more of the intersectionality and representation. So Angela, I wanted to ask you, how do race, class, cultural background shape queer style across different communities?
It's an easy question.
I keep saving them for you.
I feel like it really starts with our community. My great-grandfather is a Black police officer who also an entrepreneur in the Jim Crow South. And he was able to buy his 10 children a house. He bought 10 houses. 10 houses, and that my grandmother still lives in this house. She raised her children there. And so I bring this up because we all have different, depending on class, race, upbringing, we all have different societal limitations and structures that are set to keep us at a certain level. And at some point, we have to get to a place where we are in community and relying on each other and relying on ourselves to go past that, to not see that as, well, they told us this, so this is what it is. We need to question exactly where we have this inner power, and leaning on our ancestors and leaning on each other and leaning on our community to really fight back against a lot of these systemic limitations and systems, because when you look at it and you look at where we are now, we've gotten past a lot of them. It just keeps coming back. We get past it and then it keeps going back. So what do we need to do and shift and change to keep moving forward? And sometimes that means burning it down and not playing the game, and really re-evaluating what we can do to support each other and to lean into what we have as our own resources, because we're powerful, we're more powerful than we can ever imagine, and I would love to see that move forward this time around.
Thank you. And I guess I wanted to expand on that and see if you had any thoughts about the ways in which like race interacts. Like I did a panel with Brooklyn Boyhood, which is a masculine of center, Black collective, and they were talking about being pulled over as being perceived as Black men, and then what the next step was to look at their driver's license and find out that they were actually, some of them were identified as women, and like that kind of intersection there. And then also Black trans women who are particularly targeted for violence. And so I was wondering if you could, add to that in terms of the intersection of queer style and, kind of privilege and safety of being visible.
Yeah, it's a very real thing. I say a lot to people, like, if you see me walking down the street, you see me as a Black man first before you see me as probably a queer man, right? Now, I do have a teddy bear coat and a clutch in the back that I'm not wearing right now. But, and I'll often say, like, I will use the clutch as a whole weapon if you try it with me. But it's real, right? We don't always look, right, the way we present, or we don't always present the way who we really are. I do think as people of color in this country, it's like being LGBTQ and of color right now feels like a quadruple threat, because just our safety, our well-being, our existence is trying to be erased, right? And then on top of it, it's threatening to deport people, to detain people. What is happening for the trans community, like, I think it is the most horrible thing ever. And so going back to what Angela says, I think we do need to link arms and support each other. This is not a time to be in silos at all. But in terms of style and representation, it's interesting, right? So some trans women can pass, right? Some trans men can pass. But it's scary when you're hearing, at the not the White House, at the Capitol, right? That they are actually checking people in bathrooms to see what their private parts are. And that is beyond the realm of decency and just humanity. And so it's scary to me right now. And I think one of the things is having these conversations, but I think it's important, the resistance part is showing up as who we are and kind of refusing, but then it's scary because there's violence against that. So it's a tough time. But I think a lot of this is scare tactics as well, right? And so we have to be careful of falling into the trap of the witch hunts and all these things. In terms of protecting ourselves, I think it is, like I said, about, being smart about how you move, but also we've just got to protect our own.
Apologies. You've answered a lot of some of the questions that I've had. So I wanted to get a little bit more into ballroom culture, and if you all could speak on the ballroom culture and its contributions to queer style.
Um, I know, I'm like, okay. So listen, ballroom culture, I mean, the thing that a lot of people don't know about ballroom is ballroom literally started during the Harlem Renaissance era, right? And so, like everything else that we do as queer folks, is that we want to create community and spaces that we can exist safely and a freedom of expression, because we're not accepted necessarily in the mainstream, nor want to be there. And so what's amazing about, so you think about the center of ballroom, speaking to what we just talked about, is about safety, protection, family, taking care of folks. But in that, it offers this opportunity for expression that is all the things. You know, yes, a lot of the photos that in my presentation were very masculine presenting, but if you really dig into it, there's a lot of coding in the styling, right? And so one of the things I think about ballroom is just the creativity, the taking kind of social norms and turning them upside down, and then the categories that they have now, right? It's like, you know, country club realness and all these things, right? It's like taking these aspirational things, but making them completely over the top, right? And now the levels, because of the advancement and innovation of fashion, of hair and makeup, it is like, it's just the most exciting place to see style, fashion, and expression. And every time I go to a ball, I'm blown away. Like, as fab as I think I am, or the styling, and when I was styling, the access to clothes, it's nothing compared to what these communities are putting together, these houses, right? And how they are expressing themselves in their bodies, resisting and protesting in many ways, but also celebrating who we are as individuals and our uniqueness.
I love the resistance in it as well too, of creating a character and embodying a version of itself that wouldn't be allowed in a country club, and giving us a chance to see each other as representation in those places that we're not allowed into, and making it even more fabulous.
And I love too, especially like, you know, it's like STEM siren and all these categories, but I'm literally like, sometimes on the weekend, it's like I fall down this rabbit hole of like Instagram videos. Like if I miss a ball, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, what is that? Like, that is amazing, right? And I think it's just, it really, and it speaks to a conversation that happens in fashion, right? I think that's something that's really important. There are a lot of LGBTQ folks that work in fashion behind the scenes, right? And so they bring this other element to it, right? And I think in ballroom, you get to see this very wild expression. And a lot of that stuff does trickle to the real fashion runways, right? You see it make its way there.
Yeah, I was on another panel where somebody who was the father of the house was saying that they used to send like ops in there to sketch, and that they used to later on see designs that were in the ballroom then later on like the mainstream fashion runways. So yeah, I don't know too, Austin, if you wanted to speak to that at all in your experience with like Sir New York.
I can definitely speak to queer and trans fashion being leaders, and and just not even designers, but just people on the street. From top to bottom, the industry will rip you off and not ever say thank you. It happens across the board, from design to, you know, like I said, the ballroom, everything. It's literally like they, you know, you guys know, fashion trends, there's forecasts, they go everywhere that they can. They go to trade shows, they go to balls, they stop people in the street and they take your picture and you're like, oh, cool, they're taking my picture, they think I'm great. But then you go on the trend forecast that these companies are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to look at, and then you see your stuff or you there and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this maybe it's not so flattering. And it's crazy that you know that it's happening, but when you see it in black and white, it is heart-stopping. And just from my own experience, I had a fellow menswear student who ended up working for Adidas abroad, and they sent me a graph that Adidas sent to all of their designers worldwide, and it was a pyramid, and it was who you should be looking at. At the top, it was like Balenciaga. The next, it was like Alexander Wang and I forget who. And then it was Sir New York, Public School, Hood by Air, and then it was like another set of designers underneath. And at first, I was like, oh my God, I know they're looking, but no, they're really looking. They're like absolutely like telling all of their designers to look at these brands and these designers, and you know, they have the ability to. I was a struggling designer with absolutely no money. I started it with $500, and you know, you've got Adidas who's just immediately ripping you off, or even Alexander Wang. It happened across the board, and it's still happening. Like those old collections, I still see coming back out and coming around. So. It's incredible. It's like, you know, when that happens, you're just like, okay, well, I'm done. Like, there's nothing I can do. I mean, we're always forward. That's the other thing, though. Like, no matter what, we're always, like, ahead of the trend and ahead of the curve. But it is disheartening when you're a designer and you're struggling to make it into an industry that really does not want to allow young independent designers in. So, but you know, we're fabulous. Queer and trans people have always been forward, always making things out of absolutely nothing, and then the world accepts it 5, 10 years later.
Yeah, exactly. I know, I remember I was telling a coworker that I was going to a ball, and then he was like, what is that? And I was like, how do I describe it? I was like, kind of like Vogue, and he was like, kind of, oh, like Madonna. And I was like,
Prime example.
A little late. But yeah, I think I had another question for you, but I think you managed to answer a lot of it, but I'm just going to ask in case you want to add some more. And it's like, as the first known trans designer to show at New York Fashion Week with your brand Sir New York, how did you navigate the fashion industry as a trans designer, and what challenges and breakthroughs shaped your journey?
Thank you for that. When I started in my brand Sir New York in 2010, the fashion industry and the world at large was not having the conversation about gender diversity that we're having now. And I didn't really talk about being trans. I didn't want to be pigeonholed. And unless you knew that I was trans, I really didn't talk about it at all, because I wanted my work to stand for itself. I didn't want the story to be that I'm a trans designer. And the breakthrough was just being there, just showing up, just like deciding that I wanted to be a fashion designer and following through and showing for Fashion Week. And the challenges were really in the industry that is built upon the strict categories of menswear and women's wear. And my design perspective was outside of that binary always. And I would say that I was designing menswear for everyone, for all people. And the stores would be like, well, where do we put it? And I'm like, oh God. I'm like, it's just clothing. Everybody wears menswear. Like, it doesn't matter, just, you know. And then also just talking back to hip hop a little bit, my brand got really picked up by major artists like Wiz Khalifa and French Montana and Rihanna, and there were like Usher, so many people. I never seeded anyone. They picked it up, they found it, it was in their videos, and these are like hyper masculine folks, like especially Wiz Khalifa and French Montana, and I really didn't want them to be like, wait, this is a trans designer? I'm not trans, I don't want to wear this. So it kind of like, in a way I did myself a disservice, because I felt like at the time, like, people don't really understand my perspective. They don't understand me, and I can't be a whole person because I've ended up pigeonholing myself in a weird way by not talking about it. I mean, later I did, and I got over that fear, especially because the work did stand for itself. So I just kind of like, and then I kind of pivoted in that I felt like the industry is so exclusive, and I felt like I no longer wanted to be a part of an industry that didn't support young folks, queer folks, trans folks, and I wanted to design from and like by and for a trans perspective. And I also felt like, you know, I knew firsthand how difficult it was to find gender-affirming products that were affordable and felt good and had a style perspective. There wasn't all the things for trans folks were very like medicalized or were like dispersed. You would have to look in like a sex shop for maybe you'd find a packer there, or in a clothing store for women, maybe there'd be binders there for trans folks. And I really felt like there needed to be a space where all of these things could be put together in one place, and that would have not only function, but an aesthetic point of view as well.
Thank you. So my next question is for Angela and Emil, sorry. The upcoming, so this is a question about history and moving it into the future. So the first question that I had was, you know, what impact did the Harlem Renaissance have on Black queer style and identity?
So I think what's really interesting about the Harlem Renaissance, the New York Times, when they announced that they were going to do this kind of Black dandyism, there are a lot of stories about the Harlem Renaissance. Also, last year was the 100th anniversary of the Harlem Renaissance, so there was a lot of talk. A lot of people didn't realize that most of the stars of the Harlem Renaissance were queer folks. They were Black gay men and lesbians, and there were some trans folks and some transvestite folks and drag performers and stuff like that. But what's really, really powerful about it is, again, they were artists, right? So the way that they dressed and the way that they expressed themselves and the work that they were creating had a very, very powerful impact on culture, right? And so now that look in this dandyism idea is really being celebrated. And we've seen dandyism kind of coming back into fashion over the last few years, and people dressing better, right? Dressing up more and being less casual. So that impact, so it's interesting that the Met chose that topic. I was, you know, a little question mark about it. It's going to be very interesting to see because it is not an event that's all Black people. Right. So that part. And then it's going to be interesting to see how people show up. I asked a friend who used to be Andre Leon Talley's assistant what he thought about it, and he said it'll just be men in beautiful tailoring and women in gowns and gowns and gowns. So we will see. But I think the idea of celebrating Black style is important. I think there should raise questions around the lack of diversity in fashion, particularly Black designers who lead major fashion houses, right? There's not that many. There's been roulette recently with all the European houses, and I have yet to see, other than Pharrell, become the head of a major design house. And so it's an interesting conversation to have. I do think it's wonderful that the people that they put together, Coleman Domingo, Pharrell, and who else? Dochi? Yeah. Dochi. No, because now they've added all these other people. Yes, they keep expanding, right? So, so it'll be interesting. It's going to be an interesting moment to see what they do.
Sure. I had the same reaction of kind of like the question mark of like, how is this going to work? I'm really excited about it. I think it's necessary for us to be acknowledged in this way. However, especially in the styling world, there aren't many Black stylists. We mostly know of the men's stylists, but there aren't many key Black women stylists. So I was hoping, my next thought was, well, I hope everyone uses a Black stylist. That would be great. That's really would open up the gates for other people to be able to show their work on a bigger stage, and for us to really show our talent from the beginning to the end. And that would be something that would be great if we had that as like a requirement for these types of events.
Well, we can continue talking about this. I feel like I didn't even get through half of the list of questions, but we do have to go to audience questions now. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand or make your way over to one of the microphones. I can't see them from here, but yeah. If you have any, please. Yeah, there's a microphone there if you want to ask. We ask that you just not yell it out because not everyone will be able to hear you. Yes?
Is it on? Is it on? Okay. Hi there.
Hi.
So, you know, big topics, real heavy. I thought I might ask like a nice light question. So like, what's your favorite color and why?
I love that.
An easy question.
That's a hard question. That is not easy.
Every question can't be hard. It's like first grade. What's your favorite color?
Okay, I'm going to answer this because this happened with one of my students in my journalism class yesterday. He's like, Professor, you always wear black. Is black your favorite color? I was like, it's not. I was like, I live in New York. It's easy. I don't have to think too hard. I'm tired from grading y'all's papers and preparing for your classes. And so I don't have to think that hard. Everything works together. My favorite color, thank you for asking, is red.
For me, it's like my mood, the moment, the minute. Like, I can't pick a color. They're all great.
They are all great. My favorite color is red as well, because I only wear it with my lipstick. And so it's my power color, so it's my favorite color.
That's good. I like that. I like that.
What's your favorite?
My favorite color, right now I'm in my beige era. I know.
It's beige a color.
I know.
Is that a color?
Are you on the Pantone color trend for 2025?
I used to be a hot pink girly for a long time, and I think my eyes just need a little bit of a break from that. Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Hi, guys. Don't mean
Hi.
to yell. I'm just really excited. Thank you so much, you guys, like, for just being who you are and, like, going through the day-to-day, being who you are. Like, I'm sure the days are not easy. My question is, like, in the age that we're in, and DEI being annihilated and transphobia and stuff like that, my question is, what is the currency in the fashion industry? In social media, we're seeing a lot of like, okay, it's boycotting, it's where our money goes, it's where our attention goes. Like, I see you guys kind of like as our parents, like in the fashion industry, like passing on wisdom to us. And I'm like, okay, like how would you guys encourage us to be more brave, whether it's in the choices we make with where our attention goes, where our money goes, where can we kind of expand? Because there's just a hunger for expansion and queerness and a lot of like our influence going also translating in our currency, but also like intersectionality wise.
Yeah.
And so I'm just really curious as to where you guys see like more room for courage and bravery and what the currency. I'm sorry. I love you. Sorry. He's a Black queer poet, y'all. Tap into Najee, period. But yes. Sorry. Yes, that's my question. Thank you guys so much.
Excellent, excellent question. I love your energy. I love the enthusiasm. And you're absolutely right. There is a movement right now of moving away from cis-normative run brands and companies, and I think that is important. But what I think also is really important is that we're making what we want to wear for ourselves and for our community. And the more you do that, the more you make what you want and what you know that your peers want, the better. We can't rely on these companies and these corporations to represent us. They're not going to. And you can see the moment they're given license to take away what they've been adding, they'll do it. And without hesitation. So take up space, be yourself, and be creative, and do not let anyone out there tell you that you can't make this or you can't be that, or that you have to fit into any box, or that you have to be 12 times as excellent as anybody else to even be considered.
Right. I love that, and I think that that's exactly right. We have brands, right, that are created by queer folks, by Black folks, by Asian folks, by Latin folks, and we need to support those brands, and trans folks, right? We need to support, because what we tend to do is be like, okay, I'm not supporting this anymore, like Amazon and Target, right? But they're Black and queer designers that are selling products there, so how can you go to them directly versus going to these big brands? And I think we've been seeing that a lot with books, right? People saying, go to your local bookstore. Why are you ordering from Amazon? So I think we have to start thinking in that way. What businesses are we supporting? Because we have a lot of money and influence, y'all. Yes. And I think sometimes we're like, oh, they're attacking us. It's like, okay, you are, but we will clap back.
Right, and I do want to say that it's important that, it's not that we just cancel out. It's like, what are we actually doing to support? And yeah, we do have to support Black, queer, and trans brands. And we're seeing more and more brands made by and for the people that we're representing. It's like for us, we're making them for us, for you, for us,
And then I think supporting the brands that do support us, right? Like, I mean, yeah, I'm fine to say this. Like, I'm doing a talk next week with Ralph Lauren for their LGBTQ affinity group, and I just thanked them on the call, like the pre-call. Like, I was like, thank you for seeing me and Native Son and not being bullied, right, by all this stuff. The other thing that I would say is I tell my journalism students, obviously be aware, follow the media, but don't go down the rabbit hole, because you will cripple yourself with anxiety. And it is not, it's changing. Half of it is just shock and awe and reality show antics. A lot of it is real, but limit what you take in, be aware, but don't just sit in it.
I agree.
Yeah, of course. That goes in hand of really thinking about us being creative. What if we do clothing swaps? What if we do something where we meet in our community and exchange things that we are getting rid of instead of just tossing it, making sure we know who it goes to. Again, also letting go of the convenience, y'all. Like, we have gotten really used to being like, oh, I'll just get it on Amazon, or I can get it cheaper on Amazon. Think about the fact that the people who are creating the designs and the clothing and the accessories and all the things that you need, they're real people. And pay extra to give back to real people who are there creating for you. And think about it in that way.
And I think, you know, whenever we're like economically disadvantaged, it actually gives us license to be more creative, because you can recycle and thrift and take something apart and put it back together, add a stitch to it, like just make it your own by using the resources that you do have.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. We have time for one more question. Yes, I'm sorry.
Hi, good evening. Hope you are doing all of well. This is Maliha Sara. My pronoun is she, her, they, them. I'm a intersex person. Actually, I want to say that when you discuss all of panelists, I'm a little bit hard. You never mention intersex people. You always told that LGBTQ. When you actually say that you drop the whole community, right? When you actually arrange the program, that type of program, and we will be actually the inspired, and we think that in the home and say that, oh, we have a lot of work for them, maybe we are doing a lot of them, but actually we are sad. Most of the time they never mention our intersex identity, because if you said that, oh, LGBTIQ+, because if you said that the plus, because intersex identity is not only the gender identity, intersex is the sex characteristic as well. So if you don't mention the intersex identity, it also, you know that the intersex community is the marginal community among them LGBTIQ community. So this is my online supplication that for all of your panelists and all of your program, when you discuss next time, please mention our community, and it will be more, actually will be inspire us. Thank you so much.
Received. Thank you for calling us in.
Thank you for that. We will definitely take that into consideration in everything we do. We have an amazing community. We want to make sure everybody is represented. It's really hard to do with such a small panel, but maybe we can have another discussion where we dive into more identities within the LGBTQIA+ communities. And again, thank you for calling us in on that. We appreciate it.
Sorry. Just want to give this panel, a beautiful, amazing panel, another round of applause. Thank you. Thanks, Anita and Emil and Austin and Angela, for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for your wonderful questions and presence. We have a series of programs coming up called Queer Legacies Project in March. Please check it out. We will be archiving the ephemera of our queer elders. So if you know anyone who's over the age of 55 who has like boxes of things or photographs or news clippings or VHS tapes, we're going to support them in digitizing those archives all throughout March. So please look that up. On your way out, please complete a program survey. Let us know how much you love this program and what we can do to improve in the future. And also, please use the Step and Repeat upstairs to have your photo taken. Our photographer will be around, but if you don't see them, please take your own photos and tag us, and we'll be sure to reshare them. Thank you so much for being here. Have a good night.